Welcome back to Yoga Insider Podcast. I'm your host, Alex Waycott. I hope that you are doing well wherever you are tuning in from in the world today. It's really not lost on me that there's a global community of yoga teachers that are listening to Yoga Insider. We have listeners in 24 countries, and there's 1,000 of you. So 1,000 yoga teachers from so many places around the world is just so cool to me. Like, I'll never not find that to be cool. So I really, really appreciate you being here and just taking the time to listen. So this weekend, I taught a Yin Yoga and Acupuncture workshop with my colleague Jessica. And it was our third time offering this particular workshop. And one of the things that I've been reflecting on is how much I actually love teaching the same workshop or the same training multiple times, because it truly provides the opportunity to refine and make it just a little bit better every single time that you do it. And one day I will bring Jessica on the show. I feel like I could bring her in for so many different episodes because there's like so many things that we could talk about. But prior to our Yin Yoga and Acupuncture workshop that we've been running, and just for background information, my colleague Jessica is a registered acupuncturist. So she's obviously the one doing the acupuncture and I'm facilitating the yoga part. But prior to this recent workshop that we've run 3 times so far, we were actually running a Yin Yoga and Acupressure workshop. And that was super interesting. It was really beautiful because of Jessica's professional expertise in acupuncture and traditional Chinese medicine, she was able to advise on acupressure points on the body that we could stimulate through like really gentle acupressure massage in specific Yin Yoga poses. So we created this whole workshop where like in every single Yin pose, there was a correlating acupressure point, and we would go around to every person and offer acupressure massage in the Yin Yoga poses. Like, it was so nice, so relaxing. But we actually learned a lot from doing those prior workshops, and we've definitely adapted and kind of made some changes so that it flows a little bit better for us. Because what happened the first time we ran Yin Yoga and Acupressure was that we didn't anticipate how much demand there would be. Obviously, it was something that people were really interested in. And we had so many people sign up that we had to run 2 workshops back to back. And even though from the outside, that looks like a really good problem to have, because you're like, oh, like there's so many people who want to join and it's popular, like that's great. But the issue was that we were teaching 2 90-minute workshops back to back. So like 3 full hours of workshop. And I don't think we anticipated how much physical work it was going to be for the 2 of us. And like, you wouldn't anticipate that, teaching a Yin Yoga workshop would be physically demanding. But because of the nature of the workshop, we were having to go like up and down off the floor and like running around to try to get to every person and all of the poses to do this acupressure. And doing that for like 3 hours straight was just so tiring. Just to do that for like 3 hours with 30 students, it was just like too much, even though like the concept was really good. But like sometimes you just don't know these things and you don't anticipate them until the workshop actually happens. So when we developed our Yin Yoga and Acupuncture workshop, that was kind of like the natural next step from what we'd already been doing. And we've made a few changes. So we cap the workshop at 15 people so that the amount of students in the room is manageable. And we also only run one workshop at a time. So the last time we did this, we ran one workshop in one city. And then I think it was the next day, we ran a second workshop in a different city, but there was like a day between the workshops rather than trying to do 2 workshops back to back. Like, it was just too much. And like, even since we ran those first 2 Yin Yoga and Acupuncture workshops, we did make some little changes as well. So, this time around, we were way more conscious of the temperature in the room. We realized that we needed to do more to ensure that it was really warm and really comfortable for people, just because there's so much stillness in the workshop. And we also realized that we needed to leave a little bit more space for like the actual acupuncture portion of the workshop to take place so that didn't feel rushed. And the reason that I'm saying this is that even for experienced teachers like us who are well versed in running workshops and managing large rooms of students, we're always refining, and the work truly never ends. Like, there's always something to improve. But what I do love is how every time we do something, it gets a little bit smoother in some way, especially in terms of timing and pace and just our confidence. And like, obviously, if you collaborate with the same person long term, you do just kind of develop your own ways of like communicating things kind of silently, like through body language or eye contact during the workshop as well. And that's kind of cool to see those things happen. But yeah, I think that, when you do the same thing over and over, things do start to feel more spacious and more grounded over time. And it was just nice to see this most recent iteration of the workshop go as smoothly as it did yesterday. And yeah, I'm really enjoying teaching some more experiential workshops this year and some more just kind of like experiential classes. It feels really refreshing for me to take a little bit of the pressure off from my teaching right now after running so many big trainings over the last 3 years. I'm really just enjoying holding space without like having a big curriculum to deliver. And I just feel like I need that kind of lightness in my life and in my teaching right now. So offering that workshop was definitely a highlight of my weekend. And I'm looking forward to, the next time we get to do it. And it truly feels aligned as well to be able to offer, Yin Yoga and community acupuncture, where folks can access acupuncture for about 50% off of the price of a regular treatment. Here in Canada, like just depending on where you're tuning in from, you can generally go to like a hospital or a walk-in clinic and not have to pay any money to, receive healthcare. Like out of your pocket directly. It comes from taxes, but not everybody has extended health coverage here to cover things like registered massage therapy or mental health counseling or acupuncture. And so it can cost a lot of money if you're paying out of pocket. And it just feels really nice to be able to provide people in the community the opportunity to experience acupuncture at a reduced cost. And it's really cool to collaborate with someone else who kind of shares those same values that wellness should be accessible to people. And especially just, in the wellness industry right now, like so many things are priced so exorbitantly. And I know that the cost of living is super high and like it costs a lot to like run a retreat and run a training. Like I do it, I get it. And it's really nice to have offerings out there that are hopefully just a little bit more accessible to more types of people. So yeah, highlight of my weekend. And just this is a chatty episode today. I'm just taking you behind the scenes, filling you in on what's been going on lately. I added an extra pre-registered series to my monthly schedule. So normally every month I offer 4 different pre-registered yoga series. So I typically offer 2 foundations series and 2 vinyasa series, and they run for the whole month. And this month, for February, I added an additional pre-registered series just because classes have been really busy. And I was hoping that by adding that extra class, it would help kind of space people out a little bit and just give people some more options. And I didn't know how it was going to go because, like, as you know, anytime you put something new out there, you can't really predict, like, if it's going to go over well or if people are going to sign up. And I was kind of thinking like, even if I have a handful of people, I'll run it and it'll just be a nice offering to put out there. But the class has actually been really full and it's going great. And yeah, glad that it's been well received. And what's really interesting right now is that my website traffic, which I, to be honest, like don't pay a ton of attention to, more interested in the podcast analytics, but my website traffic and like inquiries about classes coming through my website are like really, really noticeably up this month. And I'm bringing this up because historically, most of my new students come through word of mouth. So typically somebody who takes my classes tells their friend or their colleague or their neighbor, whatever. And like people end up coming and joining or, you know, even taking a training because like somebody they know took it. And so word of mouth has been huge for building up my classes over the years. And I've had so many new students coming through lately. And every time they show up for their first class, I always make a point to ask them, how did you find out about these classes? Like, do you know someone who comes? And every single person this month has said, I found you through a Google search. And I'm just fascinated by this because I do my own SEO and I do my own website. Like I don't outsource those things at this point in time. And I also haven't made any changes to what I'm currently doing. Like I haven't changed anything on my website. I have not updated my SEO recently, which I should do. But what I kind of suspect is that my podcast consistency might be compounding and is maybe somehow boosting my SEO. And if you are listening and you are an SEO expert, I would love to know if this is for real or if I'm just imagining this. But yeah, it's kind of interesting to see. And like, just to ground things in reality, like, you know, all of this stuff takes so much time. And like, I've been showing up and teaching for years, and I do have a pretty significant yoga-related digital footprint. Like if you were to Google my name, you're going to find articles that I'm featured in. You're going to find links to previous events that I've taught, upcoming events. You're going to find my podcast. You're going to find my YouTube channel. You're going to find websites of like places that I've taught before or my name affiliated with like people that I've worked with in the past. And it's a really interesting position to be in right now where all of that momentum from like years and years and years of work behind the scenes is really showing up. And like, it's something that's taken a long time to build, and it's taken so much consistency and so much patience and trial and error and making mistakes in public and like all the things. But I'm actually like moving into a season of seriously increased visibility, and I will talk about that on the podcast very soon. Like you'll get to hear all about it. But what I'm asking myself as I step into this season is like, can I hold this? Can I stay grounded and stay true to my values while being seen in a really big way? So like I said, I will have more on that soon. And I think that this is going to be a theme for the next few years, but that's just something that I'm working through behind the scenes, like in my own life and my own practice right now, is like, wow, like we work really hard to make things happen, and then the big things that we want start to happen and we have to be able to like hold it down and not freak out because we're really busy or because we're being seen in a new way. So I just want to be like super real about that as I talk on a podcast. And yeah, anyways, since I'm coming off of a workshop teaching weekend, I thought I would address a little bit how I prep for workshops, because it is something that people ask me about. And I'm not talking so much about how I plan the actual workshop, like the nitty-gritty of that, or how I do the marketing, but I'm talking about how I prepare to show up and hold space. Because I also feel like that really ties into what I'm experiencing right now, is like, how do I set myself up to show up in a grounded way while my audience is growing quite quickly. So I truly believe that our presence changes when we're well resourced and when we've been able to take care of ourselves. And even if I'm not teaching a big workshop, or even if I'm not teaching like, a big training that requires a lot of mental effort, there are still certain things that I really like to prioritize ahead of time. And I think that if you do feel kind of stressed or overwhelmed by doing this type of teaching, like you really have to come up with some practices for yourself and kind of like some rituals for yourself that you can do ahead of time to, help you show up in a good way. And so I do have some non-negotiables, just like energy-wise, before I teach workshops or teach trainings. And one of them is like doing my best to get a really good sleep. And it doesn't mean that I'm always going to sleep well before, I have something big to do, but I try to create the conditions for that to occur. So generally, I try to avoid any big evening plans or events like the night before I teach a workshop. I try to like get myself into bed early if I can, and just make sure that like I'm taking that rest time and that quiet time for myself before I show up and hold space for other people. And something that I've always done, especially around, just teaching yoga in general, but workshops and trainings, is my personal rule, and this is just for me, is like no alcohol and nothing that is going to like alter or impact my state of mind in any way close to teaching. And like I have always practiced this, and again, it's just like a very personal thing, and I've just found myself like over the past 2.5 years, I'd say, like I don't even drink alcohol anymore. Like I haven't touched alcohol for 2.5 years, just because I teach so much, and I feel like it's not responsible for me to show up with any sort of like cloudiness in my mind whatsoever, like out of respect for the practice, out of respect for the people who are showing up to my class. Like I need to be absolutely clear-headed, and that feels really good for me. I also like to make sure that I am engaging in my own practices prior to showing up for other people. So I want to make time to do my own yoga practice, go for a workout, go for a walk. Like personally for me, I find moving my body is the best way for me to kind of discharge any energy or like feelings that I don't want to take with me into the room. And I'm sure that you'll have your own way and like your own things that you like to do to just kind of like tend to yourself and make sure that your needs are met before you show up and hold space in that kind of environment. But I really want to emphasize that, we're not just prepping the content of the workshop and like, preparing the space for the workshop and making it really nice for people. We're also preparing the systems of our bodies and like our nervous system as teachers to hold space for others. And another thing that I like to do is really center my teaching around the students and like around the people that I'm going to be teaching. So when I'm hosting a workshop, it's not about me. It's about the people who are coming to that class. And another thing that I like to do prior to teaching is take a little bit of time to actually consider who is coming to the workshop. So I sit down and I look at my list of people who are in attendance. And if I know them, I'm going to think about each of those people and say like, okay, is there anything that I can plan ahead to make sure that this student is going to be comfortable in my class? If I've taught them for a long time, I am probably a little bit more informed when it comes to like their injuries or props that they like to have. And like, I'm really just doing what I can to show up and be prepared for them. So they walk into the room and they feel that and they're like, oh yeah, like my teacher brought a knee pad for me because she knows that I get a sore knee when I do a lunge. It's such a little thing, but I just feel like taking the time to consider the needs of the people who are coming is really, really helpful. And like, if you don't know the students who are coming to your workshop, but you have them fill out like a sign up form, for example, and just let them fill you in on like injuries or things that are going on in their bodies, things you might need to know. I feel like that can help you just be a little bit better prepared to make sure that your students are taken care of. And then another thing that's important to me as well is like energetic cleanliness. And I don't ever mean this in like a weird purity culture kind of way that likes to seep into the wellness industry. But I just mean cleanliness in terms of like respect for the people who are coming, for the space, for the practice, for people's time, their money, their energy. And respect in the same way that like if you have someone coming to visit your house or stay at your house, like you're going to wash the bedding for them. You're probably going to vacuum your carpets or wash your floors or whatever and just make things nice. And I like to do the same before workshops. So for me this weekend, it was like washing all the bolster covers, washing the covers for the chip blocks. Jessica and I showing up early to the space where we were teaching and just making sure that everything was like tidy and prepared and that we showed up early to prep the space so that nothing was rushed or chaotic or anything like that. And I just feel like that is a sign of respect for the people who are coming, and it feels good for you as well, like good for your nervous system to have those little things taken care of. And, you know, I just want to keep it so real and say that despite all of like the planning and prep that you might do for your workshops, not every workshop is going to go perfectly. And like I've taught so many workshops and so many events that did not go the way that I hoped that they would. And a lot of times it's because of circumstances that you have no control over. I remember one event that stands out so much in my mind, and it was like this really big outdoor yoga class. And I had a mic, like I think it was like a headset mic maybe, or something that clipped onto my shirt. And we had like a whole sound system and stuff. And it ended up being really windy that day. And the wind was creating this feedback on my mic where there was like these huge screeching noises coming out of the speakers. And it was horrible. Like it was so loud and so grating. And obviously that's the last thing that you want in a yoga class. And I remember in the same class, there was a bunch of students who like would not stop talking the whole time and were like whispering amongst themselves. And I kept thinking like, oh, like, are they talking about me? Do they hate this class right now? And like, you know, again, it's just like those circumstances that you really have no control over, no matter how prepared you are when you show up. I can think of another time, like I have so many examples, but this was like an educational workshop that I taught with a friend who's a yoga teacher, and we did it was outdoors. somebody that we know, like a student of ours, had a really amazing property, and she invited us to come use her property and invite the community and run a workshop there. And during our workshop, the next door neighbor decided that they were going to cut the lawn for like the entire workshop. And here we are in this beautiful like backyard setting. It's so nice. Like I feel like there was like a pond and like these big trees. It's just gorgeous. And in your mind, you think like it's going to be so serene and we're going to hear the birds and, you know, the breeze like blowing over our skin. And then the entire workshop is just like the neighbor just going at it with his lawnmower for the whole time. And like, there's nothing you can do, right? He's got every right to cut his lawn. And like even, you know, this past summer, like these kinds of things don't go away. I was teaching a retreat on Bowen Island here in British Columbia, and it was in the summertime, but we happened to have kind of a cool day where like the weather was kind of cool and cloudy. There was a little bit of rain, and like the space that I was teaching in was this geodome, like out again on this amazing property out in the forest. And I warned everyone because like I wasn't sure if the dome was going to be warm. I was like, please dress in layers, like, you know, make sure that you're warm enough, bring a coat, bring your socks, all these things. And so we had to travel on this ferry to get to the location of the retreat. And everybody was like, you know, well bundled up with like their West Coast style, their rain jackets and all that. And you know, we got there and we settled in and we started to do our morning practice. And then it suddenly got so sunny, and the dome that we were in became like this sauna, and like everybody was dressed in like long sleeves and long pants, and it was so hot in there. And like I wasn't even really doing the practice because my teaching style is a lot more standing and walking and talking and moving around. And I was like so sweaty just standing there teaching everyone. And like, again, it was one of those things that I didn't anticipate, I didn't plan for. There's like nothing that you can really do about it. But the reality is like your students, they don't need perfection. And like, obviously we want everything to be nice for them. But whenever those kinds of things happen that are out of our control, I'm always thinking for myself, like, what can I model for my students in this moment? How is this a representation of real practice, right? Like, how can we stay connected to our center while there's like all these things happening around us, right? And that's the thing that we have to learn. And I feel like that's why we practice yoga. So yeah, you know, teaching is a craft that deepens over time, and you know, your confidence will improve in time as well. But there are also things that like we can't control. And I just want this to be your permission slip to keep going, especially if you're a newer teacher and you're still figuring things out. Like, I just want to be real and say we're all figuring things out no matter how long we've been teaching. And it does get easier, but we're always refining and we're always learning. And there's always like another layer to uncover in terms of our teaching and in terms of how we handle the responsibilities and the visibility and all the other things that come with it. So yeah, that's just kind of like where I'm at right now. Yeah, there are a lot of things coming down the pipeline that I'm really, really excited to share with you. And yeah, just kind of like take you on the journey with me, take you behind the scenes with me. So once again, thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Yoga Insider Podcast, wherever you are listening from around the world. If you've been enjoying the podcast, definitely leave a review wherever you're listening. It really helps the algorithm like promote the podcast and kind of boost it and show it to people who may have not discovered it yet. So I would really, really appreciate that, especially if you're listening on like Spotify or Apple Music. If you could just rate and review the podcast or leave a comment on this episode, that really, really helps my work grow. And it's like a totally free and easy thing that you can do to support me. So thanks for being here. I will see you next time.